Welcome back. We now move on to part 2 of In the Headlines, where we get to have a look at what the papers have for us today. I have a copy of the Daily Nation. It is so busy today. So many stories have been featured here on the front page. Let's just quickly go through them very briefly before we get to give you more details. Number 1, cancer-causing toxins found in peanut butter and fruit juices again. This is according to a research that was conducted and released last week. It was a study that was done by ILRI, the International Livestock Research Institute. They sampled 10 peanut butters that are available in the Kenyan market, and 6 out of these 10 had contaminations that were above the Kenya and US minimum aflatoxins. And they went on to also do sample many other products that are consumed by humans and animals. And among the categories that involved humans, they studied some herbal health drinks. There's also wheat, baby food, feed ingredients for animal feed, as well as maize and fodder. And all this seem to have at least, is it 64? Yes, 64% of all these samples had toxins levels that were above the Kenya and US standards. That is, you know, the limiting standards that are given right there. So I'll be giving you more details about this particular story because it does touch on both your health and mine. The next story here is concerning nominations. Why do fists and chairs fly during nominations? And when you get to look at this story, just above this story, there's a picture of, or rather caricature, of what seems to resemble Igathe. And he seems to be just throwing slices of loaves behind, and on each slice of loaf there's a name of a company that he has worked with that has been indicated on these slices of bread. And it ranges from Equity to Vivo Energy to the Anti-Counterfeit Agency, Special Economic Zones Authority, Deputy Governor, and now he's holding the governor's slice of bread. And in each of these slices he seems to take a bite or two, then throws it away. Jitafakarie. Swahili imegonga ukuta. You can be able to just interpret it in your own way from that. And that actually brings me to the main story on the front page of the Daily Nation: storm over Igathe. This is in line with the deal that is said to have been brokered in State House just last week, which unceremoniously now named Igathe as the potential governor for Nairobi County under the Azimio One Kenya Alliance Grand Coalition, and he would be named as the candidate, and of course expected to be deputized by Tim Wanyonyi, whom yesterday said that, or rather insisted that he could not deputize a political novice. This goes on to throw a spanner in the works, and especially so for Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta in the Azimio side of the divide. Away from that, how prisons cleaner spent 257 million Kenya shillings windfall after supplying air. This story is quite interesting. Every day it keeps developing, and here they talk about some of the purchases that he is said to have made, which range from a property that he purchased and put it under his father's name. That is a house, and he bought it from the Kenya Housing. He also said to have bought a car from DT Dobi and paid some 10 million Kenya shillings towards that piece of land and put it under the accountant's name. He also bought another house and put it under the principal accountant's name at the prisons. He's also said to have spent another 15 million for business premise and land, just to name but a few of the purchases that have been indicated here. Of course, we'll be giving you more details in just a bit. And finally, the last story that has been featured here: rebels of the rift. Against all odds, what is happening? I will be telling you in not too long. Mike.
Yes, now on the front page of the Star, the headline is Ruto is ahead in a new poll race. Now, when you look at the poll that was recently done, Ruto is leading by 45.5%, Raila is at 41.3%, Musalia Mudavadi is at 3%, and Mwangi wa area Iria. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly.
Iria.
Mwangi Iria is at 1%. This poll, this is very interesting because last week, Raila Odinga was leading, and this week, Ruto is leading. So one has to wonder, okay, what's with the change? What happened? Is it because of what has been said during the campaigns? So we'll find out more about that later on when we dive into the story. Still on the front page is, which is, I think, is the leading story. Uhuru Kenyatta has said that the country needs problem solvers, not whiners. This is very, very interesting. Uhuru spoke during the official opening of the 45th Kenya Secondary School Heads Association annual conference in Mombasa on Wednesday. And he said that the biggest problem that we have in the country, that the leaders are good at identifying the problems, but not able to offer the solutions. So we'll also get to dive into it. And I'm really interested to see what Jane has to say about that, because I think it can make a really interesting conversation there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, next up is also still on politics. Turmoil in the city as Kenyatta, Raila, they shuffled the Nairobi lineup, which is causing a lot of, it's creating a lot of questions with regard to who's going to, lead in terms of the senatorial primaries that is supposed to happen on Thursday. Still on that story, the ethnic arithmetic by President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga could claim high-flying casualties, including ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna. More on that story later on. This is a story that I want us to talk about before we move on to Doreen. There's a 2-year-old intersex child with Down syndrome who needs help. According to the story, the doctors, they're recommending surgery for the sake of her gender identity. But now there's other parties within that, the story, they're saying they should let the child grow up, then make the decision, him or herself. Jane, what do you think about that?
This is actually a story that, a similar story I came across a while back of a child who was, born intersex, and the parents decided to go with a particular gender. But when the child grew up, they associated themselves with the other gender that was, quote unquote, cut off. Now, and that brought a lot of debate. That child actually went as far as suing the parents because of such. This happened in the Americas. But now looking at this particular situation, number one, we are getting to that time in our country where we are actually coming out to such stories. Back in the census, that's when for the first time in the African space that the intersex population was actually recognized by the state. And this went a long way in just protecting this particular group of the population. And the fact that it has been brought out to the limelight, number one, that is a step in the right direction. But then again, personally, I would approach this particular story from the child's interests point of standing. Because one, I understand the parents would want to, they think the child looks like a girl, so maybe let the child grow up as a girl. But much later in life, things could be different. The child could identify as a boy or a girl. But then again, looking at this child, maybe when they grow up, they can make this decision for themselves. So personally, I would allow this child to make this decision for themselves when they get to an age that they can be able to make such a decision,
I think where it gets complicated.
That's a heavy responsibility to also place on the child.
It really is. But I think where it gets complicated with this story is the child is not only intersex, the child also has Down syndrome.
Yeah.
So, Ray, what do you think about this story?
And I think that's the point where I just agree with you on that one, Momboy. Like, let that child grow, because you just can't quite tell. You say the child is how old? Is it 2 years?
Yes.
2 years. So you see, at that point, you really can't quite say whether they would turn out be, a boy or a girl, given they have both the two genders. So just allowing that child to grow and letting them decide would be the best decision for that child. Because what happens if you decide to remove the male gender and then they actually grow up being male? Or decide to do the otherwise and then they grow up being female. I mean, just let that child grow. Let them decide when they are an adult.
But then again, the spanner in this particular story is the neurological condition that the child has. Down syndrome.
Yeah, it's not just the physical, it's also the mental. So there's a lot of things to consider. The fact that the child is 2 years old and can't really, communicate what they want for themselves, it becomes very, very tricky, because from the point of view of the parents, they care. So they're doing this because they care for the child. But there's a lot of implications. We'll try to follow up with those stories and more later on. That was the front page of the Star. Doreen?
All right, ODM intrigues of a Nairobi governor race. That is the main read, and that's what you're waking up to this morning on the PD, just as we had talked about a bit earlier, that this is actually becoming one of those tight races in this August 9 general election, and this is after the entry of Polycarp Igathe there on this particular race. And just after that entry, now residents of Nairobi, particularly those of Westlands where Tim Wanyonyi gets to serve, are now saying that they are not going to take it lightly if Tim Wanyonyi backs down, given that he is the ODM candidate on this particular race. And Igathe coming to this race is actually coming on the Jubilee ticket, and then that also begs the question, where does this leave Richard Ngatia, who is also vying for this particular seat on the Jubilee party ticket? But again, remember that sometime last week there was a bit of questioning when it comes to his academic papers, and so also the Azimio One Kenya is trying to sort of disassociate themselves in respect to that. So again, really quite a tight race. And also what is coming out is that the new lineup of coalition aspirant is actually scheduled to be unveiled today at State House. So that simply means that Kenyans, basically Nairobi residents, will be getting to know who will be flying the ticket for this particular seat. But again, also remember that part of what is coming out is that there's sort of a bit of just choosing who is going to vie for which seat on which ticket. Remember that also when it comes to the senatorial seat, we have Edwin Sifuna, who's vying on the ODM ticket. On the women representative, there's Esther Passaris as well, vying for the same ticket, ODM, together with Beatrice Kwamboka, who's a nominated senator. So that ultimately means, if that is going to be the case, then it simply means that when it comes to the county boss, then it needs to go to another party still within the same coalition. So these are some of the things that also the entire coalition is trying to consider. But again, also leaders from the Luya community now threaten to ditch Azimio if at all Wanyonyi is not handed that certificate. So who really is it going to be, and what exactly are they really going to consider? Today is the day that we'll be getting to see all that, just going by this particular article where they say that they're set to unveil these aspirants today. And away from that, Form 1 entry uniform charges shock parents, whereby some schools are now asking more than 30,000 for these uniforms, and they're actually directing parents to go to specific shops to get these uniforms. And parents are now complaining. In fact, they're on social media saying that this is not the way to go, given the fact that they want to be given leeway to choose where exactly they want to get uniforms for their children. This is for the Form 1 students who are set to report on May 3rd. And Raila is saying that leadership isn't about salary. This is all about service. Just talking to also those that lost in the nominations and they're choosing to go at it as independent candidates. He is saying that, and actually was warning aspirants against joining politics to enrich themselves, saying that this is a position and a space for service and not to make money. And lastly, Ukambani leaders Azimio Tiff plays ugly, whereby Kibwana, that is the Makueni governor, saying that it's not becoming impossible to work with the Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka in the new coalition, just saying that the former vice president is pushing for his isolation in the Azimio One Kenya alliance. That is what Kivutha Kibwana is saying. So when we get to the details, I'll be telling you more of what he is complaining about and why exactly he is saying it is now becoming difficult for them to work together as Ukambani leaders. Regina.
Now, on the front page of this particular daily, being the Standard, that main read is about who is speaking who for what. And we're talking about Kenya Kwanza politics as well as Azimio la Umoja. What is happening? You know, we're all waiting to see who is going to be picked as running mate in both camps. Now, dubbed Kivumbi 2022, old is gold for Raila as Ruto goes for new. This is in reference to the party primaries that are still ongoing, some that have already been completed and certificates already issued. Primaries as voters renew mandates of close associates of Azimio leader Odinga. preferring tired and tested hands to work with him. But on the other hand, in as far as UDA nominations are concerned, they are picking fresh faces, meaning that DP Ruto will have to work with a relatively younger team. Just to skim through in as far as DP Ruto's camp, we already have the certificates in Nakuru, Uasin Gishu, Nandi, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, Kericho, and Bomet. Governor aspirant there is Susan Kihika. Senator Tabitha Keroche. She had to change her name, from Tabitha Karanja to Keroche for this particular polls, I'm sure. She's going to be running on this, she's going to be flying the UDA flag in as far as the senatorial position is concerned come August 9th. In Uasin Gishu, we have Jonathan B. for governor, while senator is Jackson Mandago. Nandi, Stephen Sang, and Samson Cheragay. Elgeyo Marakwet, Wesley Rotich, Kipchumba Murkomen for senator. In Baringo, Benjamin Cheboy there, who was can I say immediate former governor before the incumbent now. Then for senator we have William Cheptumo. Then in Kericho we have Dr. Eric Mutai and Aaron Cheriot as senator, aspiring senator. Bomet, Hilary Barchok and Hilary Sigay for senator, governor, and senator respectively. Well, the list is long, and as far as members of parliament are concerned, so you can get yourself this particular daily. Now, the UDA party primaries casualties, the big names, so to speak. We have Peris Tobiko, who lost in Kajiado South. We also have Caleb Kostani, Soy MP, Wilson Sosion, who was a nominated member of parliament, Isaac Maora, who was also nominated member of parliament, Joseph Boynet, the former inspector general, Charles Keter, former minister of energy there, Moses Cheboy, deputy speaker, Joyce Korir, and I'm sure you've heard of those major names. We also have Fred Sigor, who is a former PS tourism and wildlife. Now let's look at the Azimio La Umoja camp and look at the ODM nomination winners. In Kisumu, governor, we have the incumbent defending his seat, that is Professor Nyang'o. Senator Tom Ojienda there. Women rep is Ruth Odinga. We also have Siaya James Orengo. This is a close ally of Raila Odinga there. They have gone through the test of time in as far as matters politics are concerned. And his brother, Oburu Odinga, is going to be flying the flag high for ODM in as far as August 9th polls are concerned for the senator position. Homa Bay, there's a bit of haggling there, and consensus was reached. We have person vying for governor is none other than Gladys Wanga and Senator Moses Kajwang. Migori Ochilo Ayako and Eddie Okech. However, tickets are yet to be issued on, the rep in as far as Kuria East is concerned, as well as Kuria West. Conversations on working on consensus is currently underway in Ugenya. Well, we're going to have a repeat. ODM is going to be doing a repeat of the party primaries in Gem. There. We're going to be keeping tabs on that, but that is what we have on the front page of this particular issue of the Standard. And also something that you need to look out for is that transport costs are likely to go up by a cool 20%. This follows the review by EPRA to increase the cost of fuel, where now diesel is retailing at 125 shillings and 50 cents per litre. According to the Kenya Transport Association chairman Newton Wangode says they can no longer absorb the increase in the cost of fuel, which likely is going to be passed back to you and I. That is, transportation of goods as well as persons is likely to go up by a cool 20%. We said tutakaza kamba because life is for the living, and we shall live until we cannot anymore. So as we bring this to a close, I'd want to read a quote from William Durant. He says, "Forget past mistakes, past failures, forget everything except what you are going to do now and do it." I'm Regina Manyara, and this is Good Morning Kenya on KBC Channel 1.